Hello, I'm Tim Smith with the Adams County Historical Society, and welcome to another Monuments Monday. And we're actually filming this on a Monday, so I feel like this is a better video than some of our other ones. So here we are in the Soldiers National Cemetery looking up at the Soldiers National Memorial. And this monument, although it doesn't receive the same attention of some of the other monuments on the battlefield, is really the first large memorial placed on the Gettysburg battlefield. The cornerstone of this monument was laid in July of 1865 at the end of the war. The keynote speaker was General Oliver Otis Howard. Now, the monument was completed in 1869, and the keynote speaker at the dedication ceremony of the monument was completed was General George Gordon Meade, the commander of the Northern Army. And at the Adams County Historical Society, we have a pretty good collection of stuff relating to this monument. So it's a big day for the Gettysburg Battlefield Memorial Association. We have invitations that were sent out for this monument. We have a program from this monument. And of course, we also have a illustration of the dedication of this monument with General Meade as the speaker. When I was preparing some of the photographs for our display in the museum concerning this monument, I discovered that at the Wisconsin Historical Society, they had a photograph of this monument with the Wisconsin delegation of the Soldiers National Cemetery. So we'll show it here. It's a remarkable image that shows the monument under construction. So, you know, when we talk about monuments on the battlefield and which monument was the earliest, it really depends upon how you count. I mentioned that the cornerstone of the Soldiers National Monument was placed in 1865. The Minnesota Urn, which honors the dead of the 1st Minnesota, was placed here in the cemetery in 1867. Now again, the Soldiers National Monument was completed until 1869. So sometimes people refer to this as the first monument on the battlefield. The monuments for Colonel Strong Vincent fell here and Colonel Charles Frederick Taylor were placed in 1878 on Little Round Top and in the wheat field. And in 1879, there were markers placed by to mark the spot where members of the 27th Connecticut fell in the wheat field. And then, of course, also in 1879, we had the 2nd Massachusetts Infantry Memorial, which was placed near Culp's Hill at Spangler Spring. And depending on how you count, any one of these monuments, you know, people say is the first. So again, sometimes you might hear the 2nd Massachusetts Infantry is the first regimental monument placed on the battlefield to mark the site of where a unit was positioned during the battle. And again, the 1st Minnesota, or the Minnesota Urn, was placed here in 1867. I really like the monument. And you might notice, of course, the 1st Minnesota was involved in a massive charge on July 2nd, and they lost like 80% of their men, and 52 of those men were killed, and their bodies are buried here. Now, undoubtedly, other men in that unit died and are not buried at this location, but 52, it says, are buried here. Now, again, 1867, it's early on, and right here on the side of it is a quote from a famous American speech, and it says, "These dead shall not have died in vain." And one of the myths that we hear all the time is that no one appreciated the Gettysburg Address, and it wasn't until years later that anyone said, hey, look at this, it's a great speech. But I think right away, people understood what a great speech that was, and here it's included in a monument in a cemetery in 1867. On the other side of the monument is another quote from another very famous speech. It says, "All time is the millennium of their glory." And of course, that's from the speech of Edward Everett, which took about 2 hours. And let me just tell you this. Today, people memorize what Lincoln said, and no one has any idea who gave the 2-hour speech or what he said during that 2-hour speech. And I think this quote kind of sums up the speech for me, because all time is not a millennium. That does not even make any sense. And when I look at Edward Everett's speech, it's a bunch of words, but they don't hold the meaning that the 210 words and 10 sentences do by Abraham Lincoln.